Is it queerbaiting, queercoding, or just straight up gay? The video series where I talk about different pairings, TV shows and films that fall under these three categories. And today we will finally be doing part 3 of the Stranger Things Byler series. In this video we will specifically be speaking about season 3 of Stranger Things and how it's gay, I guess is the best way to put it. I've been meaning to make this video for over a month now, but I've been busy, and also I feel like there's an important change when it comes to season 3 in comparison to, say, season 1 and season 2 of Stranger Things. It feels like this is where the foundation really begins, where there possibly could have been a romance between these two. But we're going to delve into all of that, so let's begin! Starting off strong, one of the first moments we see between Mike and Will this season is that they're at the movies together. And Will has, one of his moments with his neck. And Mike is the one to notice it, sitting next to him, and the Will voice is back. Yeah, the Will voice. We've spoken about that in the last video. It's really sweet, and it just shows, this connection that they have. Also, people always like to point out about this is that it's kind of like a double date with Lumax, which it kind of is. It's also an important thing to point out about this season is the relationship between Mike and Elle, Maleven. And I'm sorry to any Maleven stans, I will be talking shit about your ship right now. Sorry about that. But one of the things that we see this season in regards to Maleven is the fact that, they spend a lot of time just snogging each other, and it's really uncomfortable. Nobody wants to see kids that young snogging each other on screen. But besides that, it seems like their relationship is just built on that. There's not a lot of communication between them. They don't seem to have a lot of shared interests, which is important. It's an important note to talk about. It's also important to note that this season seems to be the season where the kids, the core four, they're turning into teenagers now, and they kind of want to leave behind any kind of childhood things, except Will. Will kind of hangs on to that. He wants to hang on to this childhood magic, not just because he's gay and he doesn't get what the whole boyfriend-girlfriend thing, but also because of the trauma that he went through. He wants to hang on to that childhood magic just that little bit longer. And this is why we see a massive change between the relationship between Will and Mike. Mike is the one that's wanting to grow up, to, leave all those childish things behind, even if he fully doesn't get what growing up means. And Will is the one that, is not ready to let any of that go. And it's feeling left behind because everyone else is racing in front of him. There's obviously all this sort of funny drama between Mike and Elle this season, Hopper's threatening Mike, yada yada, there's all that stuff, which leads to Elle breaking up with Mike. And Mike is, this is what he looks like. That's what he looks like. Annoyed. He looks annoyed. More than anything. This then means it leads into the scene where Will is wanting to play D&D. And Mike and Lucas, they don't care. They don't care. They're being dickheads, basically. They're being dickheads. And Will has had enough. Then Will starts to storm out and being like, I've had enough of this, and activate the Will voice again from Mike. Instantly, the Will voice is back. He's trying to soothe him, and then we go into the infamous rain scene. Will has ran out. He's about to get on his bike and leave the Wheeler house, and Mike is there running after him, being like, I'm sorry, no, we'll come back inside, we'll carry on playing D&D. And Will is just releasing all his frustrations to Mike, saying, you're ruining this summer. You don't care about our friendship group anymore. All you care about is swapping spit with some stupid girl. To them, we have the very famous line from Michael Wheeler himself, it's not my fault that you don't like girls. He said that. The it's not my fault you don't like girls line can be read in many ways, but it can really be read as Mike is projecting. When Will and Mike are having that argument, the main thing that Will is bringing up to him is that he's not being a good friend, that he's leaving him behind, that he's too focused on other things. And then Mike is the one that, in a moment of being very soothing to Will, to not being angry at him at all, to then lashing out saying this line. Sure, by itself, it can be seen as, Mike's being a dickhead, that Will is gay. But when you put it together with so many other things that happen in this season and in later seasons, it can so easily be seen as Mike is projecting in that moment. Because why you bring that up? Why you bring that up? Huh? Michael? And then after that point, Will has gone off on his bike into the rain and left Mike, and Mike is there shouting after him. And let's get on to something very important, which I've spoken about many a time before. While the boys are all together, Max and Elle are together post the 11 breakup. And a very important thing that Max says to Elle is this. He'll come back crawling to you in no time, begging for forgiveness. Referring to Mike, saying that after this breakup, he's going to come back to you, begging for forgiveness. And Mike does go to someone crawling back, begging for forgiveness, but it's never Elle. He doesn't do it with Elle. No. He does it with the one, the only, Will Byers. That whole line from Max pointing out that, if he really cares, if he really wants to be your boyfriend again, then he's going to come back crawling and asking for forgiveness. Yeah, he does that with Will. He goes to his house in the pouring rain, banging on his door, saying, Will, I'm sorry, please, can we just talk? Not at one point does he do that with Elle. When it comes to Mike and Elle reconciling their friendship, relationship, whatever, it actually has to be prompted by Lucas. Lucas has to tell Mike, this is your olive branch, right? This is when you go talk to her. So then he doesn't even say sorry. They do the very romantic thing of, reading on the back of an M&M packet. And speaking about forgiveness when it comes to Mike Wheeler is kind of important in the context of Byler, considering that Mike as a character, he has a hard time saying sorry to people, okay? He has to be prompted a lot of the time. And when he does go to have these apologies, he's not being gracious with it, let's just say that. He's being a little bit of a shit. Apart from when it comes to Will. Will is the only person where he doesn't feel prompted to do it by anyone else, and he genuinely means it. We see this in season 3, and we will see it later again in season 4. Not at any point do we see him be like that with any other character, because communicating with Will, seeking forgiveness from Will, is a natural thing to Mike. It comes to him naturally, unlike how he talks and communicates with Elle. Then there's all of the hijinks throughout season 3, mole shit and Russians or whatever, and we come to one of the last scenes within season 3, and it's when the Byers are packing up and leaving Hawkins. We see one of the last interactions between Will and Mike in this season, and Will is getting rid of his D&D book, and Mike is like, whoa, that's the donation box, don't you want to keep it? And Will's like, no, I'll just use yours when I come back. And he's like, wouldn't you want to join another party? Will's like, never. And Mike gives the sweetest smile ever, and he's like, I'm not gonna lie, the boy looks besotted. He looks besotted. And then we get to the last scene between Elle and Mike, which is, Mike stood outside Will's open closet for some reason. And Elle has approached Mike about the fact, that she loves him too, after hearing him say that he loves her. And she proceeds to kiss him. And, no joke, he stands there wide-eyed while she kisses him. He pulls back, he doesn't say, I love you back, right? She walks away with a little smile on her face, and he looks horrified. He looks horrified. I, to this day, do not understand what that's meant to mean if it's not meant to mean that he's gay. Why are you looking like that? Why are you acting like that? If your girlfriend's just kissed you. I'm baffled. Especially when you put it in comparison to the scene before when he's with Will and he's there smiling, looking besotted. It does read as the boy's just figured out he's gay. just had the realisation there and then in front of his best friend's open closet. And then we have the scene of the Byers driving away, going to California. And all the party are there looking very mournful. They're about to ride off on their bikes. And Mike stays. And he turns around and he wistfully looks at the Byers' house. How are we meant to read this as, oh yeah, he's sad because Elle's gone, when the whole association he has with the Byers household is to do with Will? It looks like he's mourning the fact that Will is gone. Like, hold on. And once Mike gets home, he goes to his mum and he hugs her. Something that we very rarely see Mike do. But it mirrors the scene in season 1 once Mike has found out that he thinks that Will is dead. It's that same parallel, right? So you would immediately associate it with, he's thinking about losing Will. Sure, he'll be sad about losing Elle as well, but when you put it in comparison to the fact that the last thing he did was look back at the Byers' house, and now he's doing something which mirrors something he did in season 1 once he thought he'd lost his best friend, it's hard to not read it as, this is the gay boy who's sad about losing his best friend. So yeah, this was the video for season 3 of Stranger Things Bait Code or Gay, and wish me luck for season 4. There's a lot to speak about with season 4. Oh my god. That is the Byler season, let's be real. But yeah, thanks!